Next up, we have another Indiaspora member who I think has flown or flies to India at least 12 to 25 times a year. I think he's slowed down a little bit, but part of his way of giving back, to continue on what Feroz has done, is to take young people to India and give them exposure to India. And we've been collaborating together for the last few months to try to figure out how Indiaspora can play a role, because some of the other countries we've studied, like Israel, do interesting things with young people and so forth. So Sridar and I and Sanjeev, we started having discussions on how this is done. And so why not have Sridar Iyengar come up and tell us what he has in mind. Sridar?
I've even got props. Thank you, MR. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. And how to follow, I need the clicker. How do I move this? He mentioned travel. I most probably, this is the first month, and I think this is another thing MR has done. He's made sure that this month I won't go to India, you know. So this is the first time in most probably 15 years that I have not, first month that I have not been to India in that month. And so when I was, you know, working with, and I'll mention the person who's going to follow me, you know, with the AIF Clinton Fellowship, which became a passion for me. In fact, I spent more time on that than on anything else. When I left the fellowship, I wanted to start something around my passion, which was travel. And I said that all of us, and my daughters and others, have the advantage. You can give people all the opportunities, best schools, everything, but they lack the soft infrastructure. And I thought that travel was a way to open their mind. Most of the people that I wanted to target were those who had never traveled before, you know, who self-constrained themselves to what was happening just in their own locality and their ecosystem. So that's how this whole idea of learning through travel and technology, you know, came to be. So we are a network of about 300 plus members, you know, a lot of them, you know, people I had worked with, you know, over the years, you know. We're a virtual network. We're just in the process of creating our foundation. We're a startup. And compared to some of the things you've heard from the other two speakers, we're a minnow, you know. We are a startup, you know, we're 4 years old. We have 3 programs, and I'll focus on just the first one and the last one, or hopefully the last one with your support, is the Leadership Collective and something we call R2Urban, which is rural to urban, bringing rural kids in India to an urban environment because they will eventually move to an urban location. How do you know? And what we decided to do was to target high schoolers, saying that if you can, like a pool ball, if you can catch them early on and just give them that nudge, the trajectory of their life will change, you know, significantly. So we target basically, you know, we wanted to democratize global citizenship. Everybody talks about global citizenship, but some people don't even have an idea of the globe. So we said, how do we bring a concept that these people can think beyond just their environment, whether it's inner city Chicago, Oakland, you know, how can they think beyond that? So we target high school students from low resource communities. Our cutoff point is family income of $35,000. We target kids from that background, also those who have never traveled. Some of them have never flown. A lot of them have never even left the city which they have lived in. So that's our target. We have a 4-month engagement. We start with pre-departure workshops, and then we take 3 weeks in India. I just came back of my glorious 3 weeks with this group, you know, in India in the middle of August. And then we do a post-departure engagement, including mentorship. So we keep in touch with our alumni. target, what they are doing, where they are going. We write sometimes, if they go to university, we write their university recommendation letters. If they're looking for any kind of connection anywhere in the world, we try to give that. Last week, I was in New York. I had lunch with 2 of the alumni. Next Saturday, I'm going to take 5 of the Bay Area alumni to Delancey Street, which is an appropriate place to go to, in San Francisco for brunch. And it is fully funded, 0 cost. We pick them up from their home and we drop them back at their home. We pay for the passports, we pay for all medical, we pay for all transport, we pay for everything. So they don't have any cost associated, with this travel. These are the 4 years that we did. The first one, curiously enough, you mentioned it, is alternative narratives, to give them that there is something beyond just their location. Second year, we did a program on democracy and advocacy, and I'll go run quickly through. But the sum total is we tried to create something which is of lasting value. This coffee table book, which is a book of cartoons on comparing Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi, was produced over 5 days along with the school in Ahmedabad. And they worked jointly with a cartoonist and came up with this book. So we make them actually do a lot of work, during these 3 weeks. Next year, we took them to Ladakh. Climate change has become a part of our theme in everything that we do. We bring that in somehow into our, program. So last year we took them to Ladakh, and then by the time they left, each one of them had a book of what they did during that trip. It includes the daily blogs. Some of them wrote, blogs written by the leaders of the trip. And so our idea is, and this year, of course, we're a bit behind this year because one of my the person who sort of co-sponsors this with me, he lives now in South Africa, So we had a bit behind, but what we made each one of them do was to distill their whole experience of the trip on their own personal poster, which we are digitized, And then we will do a search mechanism to go through and see what was common, what was some, and then we'll publish that, But this is a way for them to go back and say, that was my trip on the Leadership Collective in 2018. I should go back, but anyway, this year we did the first thing. First year we had 10 students. Next year we had 15 students, all from the US. Last year we had 20 students from the US and 5 from India. Because my co-founder of 360 Plus, which is the name of our organization, moved to South Africa, we got 5 kids from South Africa to join us this year. Next year I've already got people from Australia, Papua New Guinea, asking whether they can send, people on this trip. So we see it growing, year on year. So there are 73 students from 20 different US countries. I won't go through that. Those are, basically 16 to 20-year-olds. What we found was that the Indian kids are slightly older. They've gone through their 10 or whatever it is. They're in the +2, just what I used to be called pre-university, that level. But the American kids are generally in the 16, 17-year-olds. And if you spend 3 weeks with that group, you learn a hell of a lot about what you don't know. Our future plan is to grow to 100 participants from 10 countries, which we hope to do it progressively. We'll take trips to countries other than India, and then we want to start a process of maybe bringing some of those foreign students, back to India on an alumni type basis, on maybe a 2-year cycle. Bring them to the US and give them a feel, for this country. Go very quickly through, you can just very quickly, if you can read this, these are the sort of what the students themselves think about this trip. When we first went, we said that we'll only pick those students who generally are, both Eli Monroe, my co-conspirator in this program, and we said that, look, we want to target that kid which sits in the back of the class, totally disinterested in life. And if this trip can be the one spark which says, I too can do that, I said that's the kid we wanted. But then we found that after this trip, taking them to places like Rishi Valley School or the school in Ahmedabad, some of them started applying to college, even if it's community college. So it's an amazing experience, and I'm very, very pleased to say that this year, one of our alumni got into Brown, and that takes some doing, and most of them you meet, if it's an African American kid, a male, he thinks of the armed forces as his way out of where he is. If it's an African American girl, she thinks of going into salons, spas. She doesn't think beyond the constraints of her ecosystem and what she has seen. And what we are finding is when they come on this trip, they are starting to think much, much broader. Anyway, I won't delve on these. I won't go through this, This is what I want to pitch to you and a call to action. I started thinking that, the Jewish people have their birthright. What do we have as Indians? But I, in consultation with others, said that, look, I don't want to take people of Indian origin to India to immerse them in an India, and be very honest, and I'm politically incorrect here, which is alien to me. I was born 2 days before independence. So I am the person who was brought up in that initial, what are called wave of enthusiasm for a country which was going to be one of the greatest countries in the world based on secularism, technology, diversity, inclusiveness. So that's the India I wanted to showcase to this group of Indians. So we devised a program to celebrate the diversity and showcase, limited in the first year to only 10 or 15 US high school students. I would like to hear your input to it, because MR, Sanjeev, and Mansi, Gabriel, we've been talking about it as to who these 10 or 15 US students should be. There is one group of us which think that they should all be scholarship students, those who can't afford to travel, and we will take them. There's another merit which I like, is that unless you know what's on the other side of the track, you'll never become empathetical to that. So perhaps a mix of students who pay and students who get sponsored would be an ideal thing for both. But they all come from the Indian community. We're thinking of it in the summer of 2019. We're not fixed on either dates. It could be anything from middle of June to August, And the topics we are exploring, we created a program, was to explore the governance, history, and concept of democracy, taking them to Gandhi's ashram, helping them learn about that, talk about how, the democracy in India works compared to here, do compares and contrasts, write some essays, Diversity, ethnic, religious, and cultural, Take them through the diversity of India. Like every year, the students which we take go and do langar. One day they go to a Sikh Gurudwara and they actually either help cook the food, or they help serve the food, or they are there cleaning after everybody is eaten. So we make them that part of service is part of this trip. And finally, technology. Because we want to show the emergence of India as a technological power. And somebody, I think in one of the earlier sessions, was talking about the different ways in which technology is being used in a very, Indian format and context to solve real problems. And I have always believed that eventually that model, which will work in India at that scale, will most probably be the ones which will be most appropriate, And again, so our format of this program that we are envisaging is to have lectures, workshops, hands-on experience, interaction with interesting personalities. I said, look, Indians going to there. Yesterday you heard my friend Vikram talk about cricket. So I had arranged for Saurabh Ganguly. We were going to do this trip this year. So I had arranged for Saurabh Ganguly to see them at Eden Gardens in Calcutta. You know, to give them a flavor of meeting people like that whom they've only heard of. Or to get some important Indian, you know, entrepreneur or somebody to host them and talk to them. Group discussions. And finally, I think that one of the things which, if there's any shortcoming in the programs that we've run for the last 4 years, in my view, we have not captured the wealth of content that we actually, we've captured it, but we've not published it. Last year, I took a film crew with me who was also, you know, part of our network. He was going to do a film, and we were hoping that we'll somehow get the funding to show it on PBS or something like that, you know, which would be, it was called From the Mississippi to the Ganga, you know. And we have close to, I think, 800 hours of video. All we've done up to now is distill that into about 20 videos, which we've given to the students, which is their part on that trip. But we are still working on getting funding for the major item. So this trip, which is what MR, when I first mentioned it to him, he got really enthusiastic about it, you know, it's a call to action for you. We need your inputs, we need your support, we need to identify the type of students who should go on this, you know, both from the paid side and what I would say the scholarship side. These are just pictures of the various students, you know. That's the Infosys campus. That was when we were in Madurai. This was, I think, I don't know where. You know, last year, of course, you know. So I want you to, you know, support this initiative of Indiaspora. And if you need any information, I'm here. You can go to our website, find out about the other trips. Thank you.